Hello, it's Hilliard. I'm going to be recording a new Stellaris tutorial here, and I wanted to kind of go over. This is a sort of a game that I've already played somewhat, and have some worlds just to fill out the menu so I can explain exactly how to operate the menu for any new players. So this first menu is the government menu, and it basically covers your naval capacity, which here I have 15 of 75. Edict cost, because this leader has some ruler traits, which is a edict cost of minus 20%, and an edict duration of plus 25%. Any edict that you cast is effectively reduced in cost and has longer duration because of the leader. He also has a monthly influence of +1, which is extremely helpful. So this automatically adds +1 to your influence, which, as you know, later on in the game you'll see the influence is the hardest thing to really get at. It's a indirect, it's only affected indirectly by planetary administration buildings or capital buildings. You can see number 1 or number 2 declaring other empires or rivals, which you get in accelerated influence. Now the next thing, I'm going to come back to the government tab, but one thing I wanted to do is, I think the most important thing to really look at is the planets, especially how they work, and exactly what you're wanting to get out of a planet. So a planet, your capital planet will have a governor, okay, and so they effectively increase. They have buffs just like the your overall leader. And so this guy's buff is plus 6% happiness probably, and he's probably reducing your costs for construction time and to clear the blocker. So a blocker, what is a blocker? Well, when you look at the surface tile, in some cases, some planets will have blockers. I'm trying to find one like this one. This is a dense jungle blocker, and you have to have the correct tech, research the correct technology or tech to get rid of that blocker. And then you only get that as the game progresses. Certain techs come on board. So let's go back to my home world. So in each, if you look at the summary, basically you have the original surface tiles will have a certain amount of energy, minerals, food, and research. And usually the research will be only one of these. This has a building which actually amplifies the amount of research. But so this original tile had one engineering tile or research credit here. And so I built a building that added one and then added another one on top of the original one, so it gives it 2. So you can see that with the planet summary, your native amount of research engineering was 1. Engineering, 1 physics, 1 society research. And if you go look at the surface tiles, you have 2 physics. That means that was originally a 1. And society research was here. So I put another physics lab here. So that's why the physics is 2 here. But if I just did a normal science research thing, it would be 1 here. Okay? Or it'd be 2 there for society. So this is your native amounts of what's present on the planet. This is a mineral-rich and actually an energy-rich world. So your surface buildings can reflect that. You can actually, since this has got actually more minerals than energy, it might be wise that when you build, let's see, let me show you. You could build actually a mineral, see here, mineral network, mineral processing plant. It costs influence, but worldwide it would give you plus 10% overall minerals. So the total minerals that you collect, add 10% to that from this whole world, it gives you a significant mineral boost. It has more basically maintenance costs than just a normal mineral silo of 2, but it might be worth it if you have a really energy rich world, or sorry, mineral rich world. And vice versa for the energy, there's another building which you could build, which would give you, I think this is called the power hub, give you 10% overall increased energy credit production. So Something to note. Also note that I have +2 food, so nobody's starving, and my population is growing. Overall, there's 16 people on 16 tiles, so the planet size is 16. You may run across, the planet size are maxed out at 25, so you can have like a 5 by 5. So this one's actually 16 again, but you can actually have another row across. I guess 25 is the maximum world's size. And some Gaian worlds, which you'll see later on in the game, are really large. And some just normal worlds are going to be really large. So your habitability is 85%. Gives you it relates to how many populations how fast they grow here and how much food they have. Okay, so that would change depending on if your habitability was lower. Surface armies. So you can build armies. You want to have some defensive armies, and they initially in the game for sure. On most of your planets, they do consume energy credits, but the maintenance is pretty low. Like here, you have 0.13. So they're not going to consume a large portion of your energy credits to maintain, and they will keep your planet from being at least they're a roadblock for your planet being invaded by a foreign army. Okay, spaceports. You want to build a spaceport on all of your homeworlds, so your directly controlled colonized systems usually start out with a maximum of 5. You can increase that with different society research texts that can expand that. But right now, most people, at least in the initial game, everybody has 5 really. So you want to have spaceports on all 5 of these that you directly control. The other planets that you do capture, you want to put into sectors. So this is a sector here, Beta Prime sector. So let's go back to the homeworld. I'll finish explaining the spaceport. You can dismantle a spaceport if you're getting it attacked and you want to go ahead and dismantle it before they destroy it, so they don't get the experience points. So you can do that. It gives you details about the armor, the hull points, the wormhole range, the station modifier generation rate is 25% for your wormhole. Weapons damage is plus 33%. You can change your defense system out. This has a missile defense. You have to pick either a missile, projectile, or a laser sort of begin with, but you can add modifiers into these module slots, which can protect your space base, or you can actually add certain things. Like this is a Fiftheron refinery, which adds sublight speeds. The corvettes and things that are made here have faster sublight speed, better evasion. If you want to build, right now at this point in the game, I only have corvette and destroyers, so I need spaceport level 5 actually to get cruisers next. And you can build colony ships to go colonize new planets. And so that's the spaceport, and you'll figure that out as you go. Let's go back to the government tab. So now we have our budget, which shows our overall income, overall expenses, and the balance thereof of mainly energy credits. So your energy credits are used to maintain everything, and it shows you have 10% minus from the army upkeep that you could get rid of to actually make that positive. Policies. So this is depending on your ethics. You have different policies based on if you're an individualist, for say, you're going to have prohibited slavery. You're not going to like that as a people. You're also not going to like to purge populations, because that's sort of like what a demagogue would do, or autocracy, where you only have, or a monarchy where you only have one leader and they can decide sort of unlimited power what to do. Your orbital bombardment policy is based on when you have warships around other enemy planets, you can bombard their populations, and if you do full bombardment, you may not have any buildings left when you take over the planet. So you have to keep these things in mind. Native interference, you can, when you set up these observation posts, for example, let's go to this one. This is a species that is more primitive than us, And you can basically take this observation post and generate society research based on if you do passive observation, aggressive observation. You can enlighten them. It costs actually 5 energy credits per month to enlighten a species. Or you can just actually covertly infiltrate their species. But it does require certain types of their natives have to be a certain level, in other words. So they have to have early space age, basically, in order to covertly infiltrate them. You can actually uplift a population, and you would do that through a different menu section, which I'll show you how to do that if you have the tech to do uplifting. Okay, so let's go back to Government tab. Native Enlightenment, you can choose to enlighten them. So yes, I would change that policy. And so then if I go back to this, I could enlighten them. See, that was before grayed out, but now I can. So that's probably the easiest way to bring them into that planet into your owned planets. You can migrate populations. You can allow free migration, which is an individualist trait they want. You can prohibit or allow resettlement. And that's usually with xenos. Like if you have other types of aliens that are part of your empire, you can allow them to resettle. Voting rights, you can give elitism, or as an individualist, usually you would have the choice of having xenos being able to be elected leaders, and that actually increases the happiness of other types of races within your empire. Leadership, again, you can have xenos allowed. It depends on your ethics. I think the militarist ethics sort of makes the voting rights and leadership allowances not visible. You don't have a choice there. First contact protocol, peaceful. That goes against your militarist ways, so you could change that. And then your artificial intelligence. Right now, we only have droids or robots and their servitude, but later on, if you get artificial intelligence, you may change the policy to include these robots into your society as citizens. These are galaxy or wide or empire-wide edicts, and you can see these. This would cost 0.8 influence month to maintain, but it would decrease the ethics divergence. So if you had an unhappy faction, you could do that empire-wide here, or multiple unhappy factions. You could encourage free thought, which would increase your research speed, but then it would increase also your ethics divergence, which may lead to more factions that were unhappy. And then these are edicts to do different subtypes of research, which you have 3. You have physics, society, and engineering, and you can look at what you have researched with these buttons and these tabs. Basically, the purple ones are special types of research that when you come across, they may not show up again as choices in your new research types. So if I wanted to select a different type of research, I could choose it here and see and switch it, or I could go back and do the one I was doing. I already have some here, 911 out of 2,970 performed, so I could switch it back to what I had initially. Your scientists will also have different types of subspecializations. So this guy has a field manipulation subspecialization, and any research involving field manipulation would increase 10% here. For example, this guy has one in biology, and this one has one, a spark of genius, which if you ever see this modifier, you want to pick that scientist. So that's let's go back to government tab. I think we went over the policies and sort of got off on a tangent and covered the research, but it was sort of needed as this incorporates that. And then the demographics. This is your overall demographics and your ethics and traits here. So you have a slow breeding trait. You have a strong trait, which increases your army damage. You're a natural engineer. You're enduring and have an ocean preference. These are positive 10% overall. food for all the worlds, positive, and you have positive minerals. You have, we can tell, a negative monthly gain on energy, so that's going to be 0% right now. Happiness, you're setting at 0%. Ethics divergent, 0%. And likewise these other things here. Since we're slow breeders, your growth time is kind of already at A minus, and that's kind of normal because of the trait, which is here. All right. So next we'll cover planets and sectors, map or menu, and you have your different leaders which you can recruit here. Governors, scientists. Governors are in charge of sectors and worlds. So here's a sector, like we talked, you can manage a certain sector, and you can like increase that world there. You held the shift key down and then select the world, and that costs 25 influence every time you modify your sector. So you don't want to do it just nilly-willy or willy-nilly, but you want to do it when you need to. So, and here's my directly controlled worlds. This should be your most powerful worlds with all needs spaceports. Okay, and so go back there. That's how you control a sector, and your sector leader may have modifiers which allow them to have decreased building costs and such. This is your tax rate and your focus. So your focus, you can do military focus, industrial focus, research focus, or financial focus. Now the industrial focus will generate more minerals. And here, so you're generating a lot more energy, so you've got an energy focus. Here you got tons more energy focus. And here they actually probably just need some energy and some, whoops, I don't want to give that much. Let's go down. I don't think it can go down. Let's see, let me get a little bit more. Tax the others a little bit more, so we have now positive energy balance. And start this guy out with some money to work with, and allow him to allow redevelopment and allow to respect the tile resources. So if you natively start out with 1 energy credit on a tile, they don't go building mineral collection processing plant. So they sort of respect the tile resources. Leaders, again, we covered that. You can recruit different leaders. Factions, I have one faction, and they're 100% support, so they're not doing anything right now. You could manage that faction by granting them independence, suppressing the media, bribing the leaders. All this costs influence and energy credits. Okay, so the next menu is your diplomatic status menu, and you have basically you can sort by empire, the status, relative power. So these are going to be your fallen empires, which is the Uendar continuum. The gray ones are all sort of your fallen empires. You don't really want to mess with those, especially in the beginning of the game. They have overwhelming power compared to you. Pretty much everybody else has superior to me in this case. There's some that don't, and some that are basically primitives, which they don't have really a space attack swarm at all. They're just natives there. So, and then you have different species type which you can organize by robotic, reptilian, molluscoid, etc., and their traits. And so you may want to look for a certain species that you're trying to uplift or enlighten, and you want them to have similar traits to your native population so they don't stick out like a sore thumb, and where you don't have to actually do anything to really make their happiness, where you don't have to modify their happiness. And you can modify if you have gene tailoring, if you have that tech that you've researched through the society research, which we'll do here. That will allow you to modify your own species to live on certain other types of planets. But know that you can't live on those planets unless you have, like for example, if I'm an ocean-going empire, and I'm an ocean, natively live on ocean worlds, I have to have a tech to live on, like Arctic worlds. I have to have an Arctic world colonization tech before I can actually live on those types of worlds. I can actually gene modify a population to live on a world that I'm not used to. However, I think even without that tech, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't messed with this as much. The shipbuilder, we'll cover this later in the tutorial, but for now, just know that there you have different cores, which you can choose a small or medium size slot. Like in this one, you'd have 3 slots here. I'm going to shift it back to the striker core, and you'd have different weapons you could choose. I have a red laser, blue shard thrower, missiles, and space torpedoes right now. This is your wormhole modulator, which you can change to have better, like a level 2. This is your combat computer, and you can set these later on to basically have an aggressive stance or a defensive stance, and there's other types of stances. You have thrusters, and you can do a level 2 ion thruster to have more evasion speed. So you compare it to 10% evasion to 5%. And also increases your speed. And then you have your ship-mounted radar, which lets you know, sensor-wise, how far an army is away from you. Then this is your energy reactors, armor, and your ship shielding, which your ships have shielding and armor. So the enemy fire has to go through your shields first, and then through your armor. If you have regenerative hull, between fights, your hull will regenerate without having to go back and, as a fleet, without having to go back and repair. So the blue is the shielding, the green is the hull, and you can tell some of these have shields that you can get a tech later on that has some shield healing, and they'll remod your shields up between fights, so you don't have to go back and repair as fast. You can upgrade the fleet with that button. You can create a new fleet, or you can split your fleet, and you can merge your fleet. Like you would highlight multiple ships and then hit that button, and that would basically merge them all together. And you can set your stance to evasive, which means you don't want to fight, you want to run. Passive, which means you'll fight if attacked first. Or aggressive, you attack first and then worry about consequences later. This is your bombardment of your different planetary bombardment. We had that in the, I think it was a policy section. You can switch it to light and limited. If I had full set, then it would do light, limited, and full. And then this is your attack target. This attacking a neutral target will make them hostile against us. Let's see if that changes. Not really. So you can click to select a target to attack with this button. And then this just shows your fleet breakdown. You have just 2 destroyers that are a laser type, 2 that are torpedo type, 2 that are missile type, some corvettes, etc. Okay? So let's go back to here, and we sort of went a flyby with the types of ships. The next is your situation log, which allows you to show and track a different research which is available. So if I track that on the map, it should flash. See there's the debris. And I can actually research that with a science ship and get science. Okay, so these are the different types of things that you can do. And there are event chains which allow you to do specific things with a final goal of getting like an accelerated amount of either society research or whatever that it yields. So you have, in this event chain, the Eurasians, I've only done 4 of 6 events. So if I get all 6, I get like a super bonus of extra research. And then the victory tab, you can either do a domination victory by controlling 40% of all the galaxy-wide colonizable planets, or you can do a complete conquer of all the other empires before you get the victory. And finally, research, we've already covered this. Again, you can do your researched or past tense to show you which types of research you've already done. There's society, which is the green. This is physics, which is the blue. And engineering, which is what you've already done, and the teal brown there. Okay, and then energy credits, a summation here. Minerals, summation. Influence, frontier outposts. You can get rid of those when you build planets in and around areas of space that you put a frontier outpost and get back some influence. So if I wanted to look for a frontier outpost, at this point in the game, I'm not sure that there is a quick way to do that. Let's see. Go to search. You can do actually an opinion map, and this shows you if they have a positive or negative opinion of you, or sort of a ho-hum opinion of you, if they don't care one way or the other. And let's see, you can search it by just a normal empire and do their flag colorization. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, your frontier outposts. So if I wanted to find a frontier outpost, what I would do is I would look sort of where I have put things. Like this would probably be a frontier outpost. Yeah, there it is. So once I colonize this planet, I can get rid of that that frontier outpost by hitting the disband. That would increase my influence, because it costs two influence a month to have that frontier outpost, or at least one. Each frontier outpost I think costs one. So I have another one somewhere else. But if I disbanded this, it would give me back one influence. So let's go ahead and do that. See, +5 now. So now I only have one frontier outpost outstanding. Now if I did that, I still contain the space because I've built things around here. So your frontier outposts, you want to put them down, get your stuff built or colonize the planet, and then disband them quickly because it costs influence. Okay, so I believe, and then last thing I covered was the naval. I think we already covered that. What is this? Strategic resources. So I have two texts that I've researched, which is the Phtharian dust and the Phtharian stones, and these add extra resources to your tiles. In other words, they give you extra buildings which you can build on your planets. So for example, I think here, like for example, this is a Phtharian power plant. It costs 1 Phtharian maintenance, but it gives me like +6 energy credits. So these resources, see here they are right here is one. They're normally hidden until you do the tech, and then once they appear, then they give you a ton of energy and other things. So at any point in the game when you can research Phtharian power stone or whatever, you want to do that, or the Phtharian dust. So it gives you dual purposes of serving as both an excellent fertilizer and as a potent ingredient in thruster fuel. So it gives you enhanced engines. For example, if you went to your spaceport, I think you sort of saw that in your modules you can build. See, there's a Phtharian refinery, and this would give you it would cost maintenance of 3 energy credits, however, and 1 Phtharian dust. But it will give you accelerated sublight speed, accelerated speed overall, and a chance to evade of +5, which on Corvettes is pretty good. So they're basically the sponges for all the damage that your big army doesn't have to take. And they're the ships sort of that go in first. So you want to have a ton of Corvettes absorbing all the damage. And if you can get other things like missile point defense systems on the Corvettes, they hit missiles out of the air. They form a wall around your cruisers, and later on battleships allow you to basically ensue a humongous amount of damage on the enemy army. Okay, and so that's it for the simple map selection. I know we didn't cover the ship designer very well, but we will in the future episodes. And if you like this channel, please subscribe. And thank you very much for watching Stellaris.